So in other news, there are some questions about what President Trump was doing during the Yemen raid, in which one Navy SEAL, SEAL Team 6 member was killed. Three others were injured. 30 civilians were killed, including 10 women and potentially 10 children. The official number of children has not been released. There are questions about where President Trump was and what he was doing during that time, because unlike the last administration and probably most previous administrations, he was not inside of the Situation Room during and observing during the raid to observe the raid. This is from Sean Spicer, the press secretary.
President, the night of the raid, how did he learn about Chief Owens' death, and do you still stand by your characterization that it was successful?
The president was here in the residence. He was kept in touch with his national security staff. Secretary Mattis and others had kept him updated on both the raid and the death of Chief Owens, as well as the four other individuals that were injured. So he was kept apprised of the situation throughout the evening. And again, I think I would go back to what I said yesterday. It's hard to ever call something a complete success when you have the loss of life.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we do know that. Thank you for that talking point. All right, Sean. So President Trump was not in the Situation Room. He was in the residence, and there appears to be some controversy over whether or not he was online tweeting, on his phone tweeting during the raid. Now, the raid, according to Time, the raid actually began at 2 a.m. Yemen time. And so that will put it at about 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you follow Donald Trump's Twitter timeline, you'll see that actually he did not tweet anything significant on that day. Actually, let me take that back. He did not tweet a lot on that day, but you can see what he was interested in. He had basically 3 tweets. 2 tweets were about the New York Times, attacking the New York Times, and 1 tweet was about remembering the Challenger tragedy of 1986. So 2 out of the 3 of the tweets that he sent that day were in regard to his ongoing beef with the press. So this was brought to my attention actually by, and let me put this on the screen, by Andrea Stone. She said Trump tweeted this during the failed Yemen raid instead of being in the Situation Room. And the tweet she's referring to is, quote, somebody with aptitude and conviction should buy the fake news and failing New York Times and either run it correctly or let it fold with dignity. Now, this was tweeted at 5 a.m. on January 29th. The raid actually took place on the 29th, but during it was 2 a.m., between 2 and 4 a.m. Local time, Yemen local time. So her tweet is actually not accurate. He wasn't tweeting about the New York Times during the raid. He was tweeting about the New York Times before the raid and after the raid. Right. So he doesn't, even though her tweet was wrong, it hit before the raid and after the raid. Donald Trump is talking about the New York Times and their failing subscriptions and they need to go out of business, not paying attention, clearly not consumed enough with his work to actually do his work and be preoccupied with his work. What he does is he took a step out of whatever meeting he was in and tweeted about his beef with the New York Times. Now, Andrea Stone, whoever, she tweeted and brought a lot of attention to it. 30,000 people retweeted it. It's not completely accurate, but it's not entirely off track. Before the raid, Donald Trump was thinking about the New York Times. After the raid, he was tweeting and thinking about the New York Times. And during the raid, he was not in the Situation Room. A raid which killed one of our soldiers, one of our SEALs, SEAL Team 6 member, 36-year-old guy, same age as me, killed in this raid. An 8-year-old American girl killed in the raid, along with other children, other women, and other civilians. About 30 civilians killed, 3 other SEALs injured, and a $70 million helicopter which took fire and could not fly, had to be destroyed. So we're talking about a major national incident We're talking about the number one responsibility of the president of the United States and President Fuckface Von Clownstick, instead of doing his job and focusing on his job on a day where he has put the lives of American soldiers at risk. When their lives are at risk, he's thinking about and tweeting about his beef with the New York Times. He doesn't get points because he was offline for a couple of hours there, and and he doesn't get points even though this tweet is inaccurate. I do want to point out that this tweet is not accurate. If you do the time change, he was not online during the raid, but before the raid and after the raid, Donald Trump is thinking about his beef, a failed raid, a raid that warrants its own investigation. If you follow the MO of the Republican Party over the last couple of years with regard to Benghazi, where were you and what did you know? Donald Trump was not in the Situation Room, but who was in the Situation Room was Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, and Steve Bannon, his political hitman. Donald Trump could not be bothered enough to go into the Situation Room and be a part of what he has sent our troops in harm's way.